It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 12th episode of Monday Movies, the hit new podcast show, whatever you'd like to call it, where myself and Stand Wilks weekly talk about a movie of our choice. Stan, how are you doing today?
I'm all good, mate. Ready to talk about a film that is kind of a timeless classic, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I know very few people that haven't seen the film that we're talking about today, which is The Blues Brothers. We are also joined by a special guest of ours who was also present on last week's episode, Joe Boyson. How are you doing, Joe?
Good afternoon. I'm doing good. Yeah, excited to talk about The Blues Brothers, one of the classics.
So 1980, guys. 1980.
1980. Oh, wow.
Same year as
that.
Same year as Empire Strikes Back, and it ages like fine wine, doesn't it?
Indeed. What are your two thoughts on the film?
Boyson?
Briefly, of course.
Oh, I just love the music. I think the music's great, and I love how they get all these soul legends in, like have their little cameos. I think did they have Ray in it doing the piano? Ray Charles.
They did.
Ray Charles.
They did. I love that scene. Shake your tail feather.
John Lee Hooker. The list is endless, isn't it?
James Brown.
James Brown. Yeah, 100%. I think where I stand on it is easily one of my favourite films, unequivocally. I don't like the extended version. I think it adds scenes that you could easily just take out. And they didn't actually do a proper rendering of the extended edition, so all the added scenes are completely different in terms of colour timing, so they look off and they take you out of the movie. But we're talking about, for reference, we're talking about the theatrical cut here, aren't we? The definitive Blues Brothers movie, not Blues Brothers 2000. But yeah.
Nice one.
But no, this film is the best musical ever made, and I stand by that. I think it's got a real heart and soul. I love the message of the movie. I love that it's got an innocence to it as well, because as characters, Jake and Elwood Blues, they commit a lot of crimes, but nothing hateful. Their mission is what makes them sacrificial characters. They do something that puts their own lives on the line for other people, and that's the message of the movie for me. How about you, Gibbsy?
They're on a mission from God.
100%. It's great. For the nuns, for the penguins.
Indeed. I just really enjoyed the film from start to finish. The number of cameos that are from famous musicians really impressed me throughout the film. You've got Aretha Franklin, as we've already mentioned, Ray Charles and John Lee Hooker, and James Brown, which has got to be my favourite cameo in the entire film, for sure, right at the beginning. But you've also got these extra characters like Jake's wife. You aren't really immediately introduced to them, but the first shot she appears, it just pulls up, and for no apparent reason at all, just pulls some kind of bazooka or an RPG, points it towards them.
That's Carrie Fisher, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. God bless Carrie Fisher.
I love how outlandish the film can be at some points. It just truly puts a smile on my face every time.
Yeah, I love how it's, and also the Nazis hunting them down. It's such a weird thing for modern America.
I hate Illinois Nazis. Yeah, it's great. I mean, tonally, it's so over the top and ridiculous. I mean, the scene that sums it up for me is when they've just been banished by the nun, who they call a fat penguin, which I've used as a quote countless times in real life. You fat penguin! But she goes, get out and never come back, and then just randomly floats away.
Yeah.
And I just go, yeah, this movie is amazing. Tonally, it's so tongue-in-cheek, and the music's phenomenal. The
movie is so over the top, but it doesn't really try and take you away from it being over the top at all. My favourite moments within the movie are when the brothers are put in ridiculous situations, such as once that bazooka is fired from Carrie Fisher's character, Jake's ex-fiance, they stand up in the rubble, just straighten themselves up, brush themselves off, and just walk away. Not a single word is said.
It is great. Really fantastic. My favourite scene as a baseball fan is probably when they give the wrong address to the Illinois Nazis, and they go to 1060 West Addison, which we all know is Wrigley Field for Chicago Cubs. And they just stand there going, yeah, we've been had. We've been completely done.
Goodness me.
It's so great. Boyson, do you have a favourite scene, mate?
I just love the songs. I love when they play Rawhide in that
Yep.
classic Western
yeah.
bar, and then
Yeah.
they're all throwing bottles at the cages, and then they all just start enjoying the theme to Rawhide, and then they non-stop play it all night.
We play country and western.
But no, that was a nice scene. You drank $300 worth of beer. You see, we thought it was complimentary based on the first serving.
We're the good old boys.
We're the good old boy. You're the good old boys.
It is phenomenal. Oh,
Did you
crikey.
know?
But-
Did you know all the musicians were famous band members from certain soul groups?
Were they?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ooh, I didn't
yeah.
know.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my favourite is probably John Lee Hooker. He's got that great kind of soul bluesy song that he plays. I think it's on the streets of Chicago, isn't it?
Yeah.
When I think it's just before Jake and Elwood go to Aretha Franklin's bar. Rest in peace, Aretha Franklin, by the way. A lot of the cast have gone now, which is a shame, including John Belushi. But it feels like, for me, what makes it the best musical ever made is that, in terms of structure as well, it doesn't lose sight of being a musical. It feels like the musical segments are very well placed throughout, where something like La La Land, for me, the first half embraces being a musical and then goes, oh, we're a musical? Forget it, we just want to do this character stuff now. So it's kind of poorly imbalanced, but that's just me.
Let's not mention La La Land again.
Do you not like it?
I hate La La Land.
Let's do it. We're talking about musicals here, Joe. Why do you hate La La Land?
Oh, it was just so boring. I mean, seriously. I mean, as a musical, I wanted to kill myself. I don't know. It was awful.
Well, because it takes itself so seriously, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It tries to be this massive kind of, thematic telling of, trying to make it in LA. But then Blues Brothers, it just never loses sight of how corny and stupid it is.
It doesn't take away from that. As you mentioned, it doesn't like you almost don't feel like you're in a musical until another song starts playing. As you said, there are the musical elements are very well placed, and it fits quite well with the story and where the two brothers are throughout the film.
Yes, I mean, John Landis as a director, who is one of my favourites. The guy's done American Werewolf in London, Blues Brothers, Three Amigos. I mean, this guy was one of the defining directors of the 1980s. And what I love about Blues Brothers as well is the editing is incredible. The film flies by. It's never dull. And I think, look at any music video. Syncing the lips to music is incredibly difficult. But this film does that flawlessly. You never feel like it's staged. It weirdly manages to ride that fine line.
Do you
It
know
is
if?
actually
Do you know if? Is it Jake and Elwood? Do you know if those actors are actually singing? Were they the
I
real
think this-
singers? John Belushi
Well,
and
Is it Dan Aykroyd?
yes, Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Who's a legend. Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for context, they had been doing Blues Brothers SNL sketches before this movie, actually appearing on Saturday Night Live doing these kind of, homages to blues music. And Dan Aykroyd had been writing script after script for ages. I think Dan Aykroyd in himself, he is a crazy bugger. He believes aliens exist, and he's got his crystal head vodka, so that tells you everything you need to know about Dan Aykroyd. And he wrote Ghostbusters. So the guy's insane. That's where the script, I think, comes together, because if you let Dan Aykroyd loose, he will make something utterly bizarre.
What Dan had been... Did you say that they'd performed little sketches beforehand? So what, Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi had performed the Blues Brothers act before?
Yeah, so like I said, as a pairing, so they do little kind of like, they do Soul Man, they do Sweet Home Chicago, all of that stuff on stage, but only, I think, like I said, I'm going off memory, but only months after did Dan and John realise this could be a fun idea to develop, because I think John Landis just came off the back of Animal House, which I think stars John Belushi as well. So the way in which this movie was made is actually just as interesting as the movie itself.
Well, how about that?
I had no idea.
Yeah,
So,
because Sweet Home
right.
Chicago is my favourite sequence in the film.
Sweet Home Chicago. Oh, which segment is that? Scroll
So they're
through
on
the timeline in my head.
They're on stage and the cops are after them, and they start playing Sweet Home Chicago, and then they go under, they sneak out back and drive all the way back, in one of the greatest
Yeah.
car chases ever filmed.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. The car chases. The first one through the shopping mall, and then the second one out from the live gig. Trilling.
Oh,
It makes you think how much money must have been pulled in. I don't know what the budget was for this film, but I think how much money must have been pulled in for this film with the amount of destruction that you see in in almost every single chase scene.
It was made for 30 million in 1980s currency, which today, by today's standards, is not an awful lot. But there are stories about how for the, epic finale, with a cameo by Steven Spielberg in the bank, by the way, the good old Steven Spielberg in this little cameo, God bless him. But for that chase sequence in Chicago, they actually had to shut down, I think, the whole city, or at least the whole area, with massive blockade, so people couldn't get anywhere near it, because it's a dangerous sequence. I mean, it is almost like I said in our previous episode, like James Cameron, John Landis here is really pushing technically what you can get away with in a car chase.
So what, the entire city was shut down just so that chase scene could be filmed?
I believe so. I might be wrong, but I know that they shut down a large portion of the city just to film it. Imagine
that's proper dedication, that is.
Yeah.
But what I really like is, after a while, the film becomes a kind of team up, doesn't it? Where they start looking for the best of the best, and they get Aretha Franklin's boyfriend with that wonderful sequence. You better think about what you're trying to do to me. And then the guy, after all of that, after every the guy takes his apron off and goes, "Yeah, I'm going."
Yeah.
And the woman gonna hold him down.
Going for it, sunshine.
I love the scene where Jake takes off his glasses. I thought that was a really nice scene because it was almost like taking off his mask. There's a bit of a serious side to him. I vaguely remember, but I love that.
Because he briefly reconnects with his girlfriend, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's standing there with a fucking M16 gun. Sorry for my language, but even still. Yeah.
Well, and that's Carrie Fisher, isn't it? Carrie Fisher, she obviously, for me, Carrie Fisher will always be known as Princess Leia. And in some sense, that's kind of annoying because she has done other movies, you know what I mean? She has been in Blues Brothers, and I actually think she's better here than she is in the first Star Wars movie.
But that is an interesting point that you made there, though, Joe, about when when Jake takes his glasses off for the first time, and
yeah, it's strange because you haven't seen his eyes yet.
No, because he's had them on for the entire movie, and even at the very first scene where he's being taken out from prison, all of the shots that are done are from you see the back of him, you don't see his face at all until he gets out the prison gates. So it's the first time you see John Belushi's eyes in the entire film. Quite special, really.
Yeah, it's a really impactful moment, but it's almost you're not sure why. You're not sure why you haven't seen his eyes. It's
a movie like this trying to be serious for a bit. I was almost a bit struck at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah. And once again, we're going on about the music of it, these wonderful character moments, because at the core of it, for me, it's just this really riveting and beautiful story about sacrifice, of doing something for the greater good, for doing something for other people, even though it's probably going to cost you, the rest of your life. With obviously the ending of the film being in jail, which is what's the song again? Jailhouse Rock.
Jailhouse Rock.
Oh yeah.
Phenomenal scene, which is a recreation of the Elvis song, isn't it?
It is.
Phenomenal scene, and I love what it's saying. I love that it's about being on a mission from God, and it's tasteful, but it's not exploitative.
Yeah, and it shows there's still a consequence for their actions, even though it's sort of glorified and it's for a good cause. It's illegal and it's not good, and they go to jail.
100%. And they get all the bloody jailmates doing their thing, don't they?
They do.
Dancing.
Yeah, happy having a good time at the end of the film in jail. It's that, to be honest. It's the fact that they, it's the fact that what you mentioned again, Joe, about how their actions have consequences. It leads me to think that it's very hard to me to actually find something that I think is wrong with the film. It's very difficult, and I'd have to rewatch the film countless times to really pick up on anything that actually might not be in play. I feel isn't in place because it's such an over-the-top movie, all across the board. It's hard to distinguish certain areas that you can really heavily criticize.
Yeah, I agree. It's its own thing. It's a very unique film, and it's amazing for what it is. I can't think of anything bad about it.
I concur completely. We're all on the same page here.
We're all three of
We're
us
all on the
just
same.
absolutely gobsmacked by the end of it.
Well, because once again, you compare it to something like Grease, which is, I think Grease works better with the songs than it does as a story, because the story is so freaking boring. La La Land takes itself way too seriously and is nowhere near as much fun as it should be, and it's just a little bit too pretentious for me. And then you got stuff like High School Musical, which I enjoy. High School Musical is pure schlock. Pure schlock. So great. Of course I want to dance on a rooftop. Who doesn't want to do that? But this film... But this film gets it right. Just about right, you know what I mean? Guys, that is our episode on The Blues Brothers, 1980, directed by the great John Landis. Check out all of his other films as well. He is a phenomenal director. Aside from Jack. There you go. That's my
Hey.
Max Landis reference. But guys, where can we find you? Boyson, we know you have a YouTube channel, don't we?
Named Boyson.
Named Boyson. Link in
Named
the
Boyson.
description.
I also do have a YouTube channel, and it is where I will once again be uploading this episode of Monday Movies. I mainly do audio-related work, whether it's my own music or whether it's music from other media that I just upload for people to listen to. I've also got a Twitter account. I'll have the link to that in the description as well.
Fantastic. You can also find me on YouTube at Stand Wilks. We've also got a Twitter called Stand Wilks 10 if you want to find it. I don't know why I'm going for a Northern Irish accent.
I
there.
don't know really either.
It kind of rolled off the tongue, but there you go. So everything I need to.
You'll go and find
This
Stand
episode-
Wilks on the. You'll find the link to that in the description there. You will.
This episode has got totally off the cuff, man. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. But there we go, guys.
Thanks very much for tuning in to this week's episode of Monday Movies, everybody. So
Man, it's
I'm
up in the morning till you get to
I've got to stop now. I've got to stop now.
This is going. Oh, this stays in. This stays in. But guys, thank you. Let us know what you think of Blues Brothers, and we shall see you in the next episode.
See you next week, everybody.